Today, we talk about beginning bee breeding and all of the basics around that. Stay tuned. Welcome, friends, to a new episode of Feed the Beast Ultimate Reloaded. Hope you guys are having a great day. I'm having a pretty good day. Woohoo! I'm having an awesome day. Check it out. We have ourselves a cool little platform. We can go through our portal and spawn looks like spawn, obviously. Bam! There we go. I got like a little beehive portal. It's cool, right? It's just a work in progress. That way people don't, if they come through the portal, they don't just fall off the cliff and then meet an ultimate demise, because there was only one block here. And then I got a ladder here so people can get back up, which is super cool. So anybody that wants to come visit the base is good to go, right? Pretty cool. I made a little design over here. I don't think I'm going to keep that, but I just needed something there for time being. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about that. So what should we talk about first? The farm is off, mainly because we have to move them. So let's talk about our plans. I've got a big plan wall. We'll talk about this first because this makes the most sense. I have a lot of ambition for this big area, and I want to talk to you guys about it. So hopefully we can get through enough of this material, but I have a big board here for goals and things, and I have many things to do. First of all, we need a bee breeding area, which is what we're going to really work on today. I need to move my wheat and tree farms, so let's talk about that for a minute. Oh, I don't have my jetpack on. That would help. Let's put the jetpack on. All right. So we have our jetpack. These need to move. Reason being, this is about where the tower is going to be. I've laid out my big tower like I was talking about. It goes to there. There's going to be a big circle from there to here, and then out to, come on, here and out to here. So that's pretty large area, so I'm gonna have to do some terraforming and things like that. But this kind of butts almost like right up to the entrance of where my base is going to be, and I don't kind of like how this is laid out, so I'm going to move these. And where I'm going to move them to is over here. I've cordoned off an area where I think that they might sit, and this is the same level, and it leads to the bottom of our base. Let's go. All right. I block that off so no bad things come on the inside. Boom. All right. It's all lit up, but creeper's always gonna creep, right? Look at this. Also an update. Here's the middle of that base. So I wanted to show you that. I did some terraforming. I cored this all out. I still need to move it back further, but I got this going because I'm gonna move these bases, or sorry, not these bases, but these tree and wheat farms to over on the other side. Reason being is I'm gonna have all of that over out of the way because we are going to set up a hive situation like this. I needed to, now you guys let me know what you think. I have two ideas, and I'm not sure exactly which one I'm going to go with yet. I think I'm going to have to start building it and decide, but I've made a template for hexagons or beehives. We're going to call this place the Hive, which I think is super cool. And that is really neat. You know, that's a great looking hive. And then there'll be a bunch of them. So I'm going to have 1, 2. There's going to be all over the land, which is really neat, right? So this I just put down as a template. This is going to go away. It's going to look similar to this. So each one of these 3x3 areas is an alveary. And what we can do in the meantime, before we get all these alvearies, because that's going to require a lot of building, is we'll fill these with apiaries. You know, just the single block guys. So just so you guys can maybe get an idea of what the layout's going to look like at the beginning, instead of alvearies, we're going to have apiaries in here, and we'll probably have them all, like, I think spaced 2 apart, like this. I think will be perfect. You know, then we'll have another one here, and then you guys can kind of get the idea of how this will look with apiaries. And each one of these hives will be for a different set of bees that we're using for creating different things, that the ones that create different combs. So that's pretty awesome. I like the way that looks. We may even put this here. I don't know that I like it like next to this, but I might. We'll see. It's gonna be something like this, close to it. But I wanted to give you guys that idea so you guys could see what we're doing. Now, these are gonna be about 4 or 5 high. There might be 2. I haven't decided yet. There might be 2 or 3 glass panes in between, and then a ring that goes along the top as well. And I think the wood that I'm gonna do is, no, forestry doesn't come with that. I think it's going to be ash wood. Maybe. We'll see. Or no, there's a different one. Let's take a look at fences, because that's Hollywood. Yeah, Hollywood, that's funny. Hollywood planks. I like they're white. They're very cool. I haven't made a common holly tree yet, but we'll get into tree breeding, so we'll talk about that as things happen. But I wanted to show you guys this so you can kind of see where my idea is going. Now, reason being I made that is because out of this entrance from the big main base, there's going to be, I don't know how far away, is going to be an entrance to one of those hexagons. And then we're going to just start building out into the land, right, off of that. So I don't know how many we're going to make, but there's going to be a bunch. And each hexagon is going to be dedicated to one single type of bee that's producing some sort of thing for us. Like if we ever get to emerald bees, we'll have a whole alveary or apiary setup that's dedicated to only emerald bees that give us emeralds. Right? I think that's the idea. So we'll kind of go around. And this is nothing new. Other people have done similar situations like this. But I want to take it to the next level, I think, which is I want to build the hexagons above ground. But I think I also want to build them underground and have them coming out of the land where it kind of bled into the land, and then like underneath is going to be like underbelly, and it's going to be dark and dingy and maybe like a steampunky vibe, and up here is going to be all organic and green and vibrant. That's the idea. Now there's one major detail that we have to decide whether or not it's actually going to be something that we can do. I have to answer the question of whether or not alvearies will work underground without skylight. Because if they can, then we can do that. If they can't, then what I'm going to try to do, I think, then is do a tiered approach where we do some at this tier. We'll go down 2 or 3 levels, and then we'll have 2 or 3 here, and I'll build the hexagons to height, and I'll do terraforming that way. I didn't want to put them all on one flat bias because that's a lot of terraforming to do, and if you can tell, there's really cool structure to the land, right? It's got really nice curves and bends, and there's like, it's a little hilly, and I kind of want to use that to our advantage, so I didn't want to get rid of that if I don't have to. So I think that's the plan. Let me know what you guys think of the plan. I think it's a cool plan. It's going to be fun. We will move these in an upcoming episode because I'd like to teach you guys and show you guys how to build these farms, because I think that'll be really beneficial. Okay, very good. I think we've covered all of our stuff. We'll talk more about the board and all of our plans coming up too, but the main thing that we're going to look at today, you can kind of get a snapshot of all the things that we have planned, and you can kind of see where all my ideas are. But the first one is we need to lay out a bee breeding area. We already have one at our main base, or at spawn, but I've already laid an area out, and here it is. Why'd you put it over here, though, Clobberstomp? Well, I don't know. It's just what came to mind. It seemed to be right, and it's a nice little area. It's nice and meadowed, and it looks beautiful. It's on the corner here. And if you look at the meadow, we're close to the beach, we're close to the river, and we're close to the ocean. So I can have our manual bee entries all very close to one another when it comes to trying to breed those lines of bees. So I'm very excited. Whoa, we went way past. Let me sleep and we'll get this back up and running. Okay, we're back today. All right, so we want to talk about bee breeding basics today. So the first things you want to start with is, obviously, in the last episode we talked about getting your apiaries up to date. The other idea, or how to create the apiary, is with all of the forestry machines. So get yourself a squeezer, a centrifuge, and a carpenter, and those are really the main things you need. If you need reference, go ahead and check that video. It'll be linked. It'll pop up here or something. You guys get the point. If not, it's the previous episode. Gotcha. All right. There we go. Let's place one down, and we've got ourselves an apiary. And I think we can just place these all kind of two away from each other. Yeah, because that's going to give us enough room for automating these, which we'll talk about as well. And we've already got some flowers here, so I'm going to pick those up if they're in the way. And then we can move them as necessary. If we need to, we can always move these closer and create more spots in here for them, which is fine. I'm not too worried about the space. We've got plenty of space in here. So if we need to, I mean, we've got a lot. Now, you don't have to start with this many. It's just, I know we're going to be doing a lot of bee breeding. So I've laid out a really big area. And I might expand this a little bit so we can go over one more. Yeah, let's do that real quick. And move that, get our fences. Do you guys like these green fences? The poplar fence? That's poplar wood. It looks really cool, right? I like them. I think they're neat. We'll talk about bee breeding, or we'll talk about tree breeding soon. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry. We'll get into that. There's lots of stuff to talk about. Okay. Oh, we've got 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we've got 1 extra. Okay, that's fine. I'll put you there. The 1 extra can go, you know what? We'll put the 1 extra down here on a river. Beach, river. So there we go. We'll leave that for, it may not be automated, but we can always make it automated later. All right. So the easiest way to get started in bees, last episode we talked about breeding the forest and the meadows and then putting them together just with their own kind. The reason for doing that is to start building up your bees, because every time you run these through a cycle, you have the potential to get more drones, which you can build up your drone manufacturing by just breeding the same type of bee. And now these are pure bees. They are 100% forest bees. So if we take a look at these, you take a look here, they're both active traits are forest and forest. Now, there are bees out there that have hybrid nature. Now, how to breed bees? Let's take some bees. And what I encourage you guys to do is find your pristine stock, and that's a forest princess. Do we have any forest drones? We need to find a forest drone. We don't necessarily have one. Are these only princesses? Mystical. We'll try a mystical. What I encourage you to do, these first ones that you get from most of the overworld hives, like those guys right there, are considered mundane bees. And what that means is they're plain bees. They're very boring. There's nothing really too exciting about them. You just get basic honeycombs from them. But when you breed bees, the way to breed bees is to take a meadow and some other bee that you have, like a mystical, and you can put this guy in there. Oh, that's a meadow's queen. That would be why that's doing that. Let's get that queen out of there. And let's find ourselves a pristine Meadows Princess. So you take a princess, like a meadows or a forest, and you breed it with the opposite. And then you'll get a different bee. Now, if you analyze this bee, it's going to say meadows, but it does have the chance to mutate. So when it runs through its cycle, which goes from this top of the bar all the way down to the bottom, it will then release the bees, and it will provide a drone or more than one drone, hopefully two, based on the fertility here. It'll go through the drone, and then it'll also produce another princess and hopefully some combs. Not always, but if you look at the territory and its effect, you've got some certain effects. It doesn't give you any effects, which is good, because sometimes they can be good effects, but they can also be bad effects where you can get nauseous or dizzy or poisoned by some bees. So you have to be careful. That's why you should always be wearing your Apiary suit. And we can look at how to make one of these. Apiarist. So to make these, you need woven silk. To get woven silk, you need silk wisp, and you can get 9 silk wisp and make it in a carpenter with some water, and it makes 1 woven silk. But to get those, you need silky propolis. And you put silky propolis in a centrifuge or a silky comb. 80% chance of a silky comb to get some silky propolis. You can get these silky from tropical, exotic, Edenic. I don't know how to pronounce that one. Leporine, Leoprine, and all of these different kinds. So there's a bunch of different bees that make these combs. You can also find them in chests or trade with a villager that is an apiarist as well. So we're going to find an apiarist and get him here so we can do some trading and things like that too. But just so you know, this gets a little bit crazy when you start going down into each thing. That's like 7 steps of things, right? The first things you probably find are going to be tropical drones, and you can turn your tropical princesses into these, and then I have a set of those already. But we're going to let these run through. We'll see what we get. We'll analyze them, and we'll take a look when they're completed, okay? So let me have these finish, and then I'll bring you guys back and we can kind of see what the properties of the bees are, and we'll take a look together. Be right back. All right, friends, it is the middle of the night, and I wanted to show you guys something. So you notice it says can't work? Can't work. What does that mean? Well, these bees can't work, for one, if there's no princess or drone. So we'll just run these through. Do you see how the Meadows Princess or the queen created a princess and then 2 drones? Now we've used a drone and a princess to make a new queen, and now we've gained and added a new drone. But it's not bright enough. It's too dark, and it's not daytime. These bees in particular, see, now this one made 3 drones, so that we've actually gained 2 bees with this particular set. So if we analyze these, it may not let me do it at nighttime. It might not. So at nighttime, it doesn't. The reason I can analyze them is I'm holding a portable analyzer with charges in it. So you can do that in the interface here, which is really cool. But I wanted to note that some bees, or most bees, cannot work at nighttime. But some bees have specific traits on them that will give you the ability to breed at night, which is the Nocturnal Bees. And you'd like to breed those types of traits into your bees so that they are always working 24/7 in the apiaries, which is really cool. So I wanted to show you guys that so you can see these different things on each bee. So if we analyze this bee, let's move this and this, and we'll take a look at this bee. You can take a look at its production and all these things. Now, if we look here, is it nocturnal? No, it's not. It's also not a tolerant flyer, so it has to have skylight above it, and it's not cave dwelling. Or I mean, it can't. What I mean by tolerant flyers, it won't operate in the rain. So if it's raining, it won't work. And then if it's in a cave, it also won't work. So this bee could not work underground, and it cannot work in the rain, and it cannot work when it's dark. So, but you can build all of those traits into the bees, which is kind of cool. So we'll get into some of those DNA things as we get through this later. But I wanted to make sure to show you guys that because that's a crucial tip. You might be like, why are the bees not working? That's crazy. And then we can look at all of its mutations and look at all these different mutations that you can get just from a Meadows bee. And we haven't even found them all yet. So there's definitely a lot of things to discover when doing bees. So let's let that run through, and I can let you guys see what happens when it's done. I'll bring you guys back when we're a little bit closer. Oh, get wrecked, son. You got smashed. Oh, yes. So I've made a thing underneath here so we can start modifying and automating our bees as well, which we'll talk about in an upcoming episode. When I do my breeding, I like to breed them. We might have to move that gate because I'm going to have a chest here, or I could put it on this side, but either way, this is going to have to go. Let's move this. Okay. Here we go. Let's put this guy here. Let's punch you, put you down, and we'll put the gate right here. There we go. Perfect. We'll talk about the modification of these hives to make them automated when we get closer to that. But that'll be an upcoming episode. But yes, we cored out the bottom so we can kind of get underneath, and when we automate these, we can have the bees that we don't need get filtered to some other system, which we'll talk about as well. So let me get this through its first cycle, its first generational cycle, and then we'll take a look. But as you can see, the bar keeps going down. I don't know if you can see my cursor, so I apologize for that. But you can watch this little bar left of the bees, and it does go down from time to time. And you can get bees that go really fast through their life cycle and die off and then create their princess and their drone. And then there's other times that some take a really long time. There's also these 3 slots here, which you can put frames in, and there's a bunch of different frames that you can get that do various things. We'll get into this as well, so we'll talk more about it. But the first ones that you typically try to get for are untreated frames. So they help with give you more production, and they improve your genetic decay. But there's also, these are really the first ones you get are these impregnated, but there's different ones called chocolate frames, I believe. Factory block. Here they are, chocolate frames. They're part of the Binny's Extra Bees, but it requires cocoa beans. And I found a jungle, but I don't know that I grabbed any cocoa beans. So we might have to figure out how to automate some cocoa bean production so we can change these. Because if you look, production is 1.5, but their lifespan is so much faster. And we can kind of get them through this cycle really fast, which then produces much faster. So all these frames can help us with our bee production, which is very neat. All right, friends, I brought you back when it's almost done. This is maybe 4 or 5 minutes later, and this should finish off pretty quick here. This is going to deplete. There we go. So we have taken our bees and we've made ourselves some common. Now, to be fair, when you mix 2 mundane bees, which are, I believe, a meadows, a forest, a marshy, it's pretty much anything, a water that you find in the overworld. Yeah, any of the basic ones that you'll find. I think there's 6 of them. You will come up with when you breed any of them, the first iteration or the first mutation that you get is common. And what you'll want to do is start building up your common stock as much as you can. Now, as you can see, you can use meadow bees to get to many different other things as well. So when you get up further bees, so let's pretend for a minute that you've bred up a diligent drone. In a plains biome, look at these little brackets. They give you, if there's no brackets, it doesn't mean anything special. But to breed a rural bee, you have to breed a Meadows Princess, a diligent drone, or vice versa. It can be vice versa. So you could have a diligent princess and then a Meadows drone here, which is how I actually got my rural bees. But you have to do it in a plains biome. If you don't do it in a plains biome, you'll never get this bee. So there's little things that you have to kind of be aware of. If you're not paying attention, you might not get them. But the first set of bees that you really try to get through are common bees. We'll talk more about what bees that you can get from different breeding lines, but for now, this is really what you want to work towards, is getting as many of these as you can. So this is a common, so that's a pure bee right there. It's got shorter lifespan, slower production, slowest pollination. That's for helping with tree breeding, which we'll get into that as well. Flower type, it likes flowers, and then it has average territory and fertility. So the next one, this is a Meadows Common, so this is a hybrid bee. If you look, it says Meadows Common Hybrid. So we're not really interested in any of the hybrids, but the fact that we have a common princess, the next step to do these is to try to get these to be all pure. So what I like to do is I like to try to keep, and you can see this one shows 1 generation in captivity. We're going to put that generation back in, and we're going to take it through a second generation. But since this already has the common active trait, we're going to take this one to try to breed out the meadows. We're going to take the common and a common meadows and try to breed these two together, so when these die off again, hopefully there'll be 2 bees here that, or 3 bees that come, a princess that's common, and then 2 drones that are common, and they'll be pure bees when you'll know that they're pure, that this has worked and you've gotten through all of the hybrids and there's no more hybrids left when your drones start to stack. And when you start getting stacking drones and they start going to 3 or 4 or 5, and you keep putting all of the drones back in here and they keep cycling over each other and they can continue to keep stacking, you've got yourself pure bees. If you get to the point where it's, you know, a princess and then a drone, all of these drones, none of them are the same. So what you want to do is you want to analyze them, make sure you try to get a common or 2 commons, and then breed them up to try to get yourself to pure bees. So what you can do then is with all of these is you do a forest meadows, use all your mundane bees together and try to get yourself this many commons. And you're like, why would you need so many commons? Well, as you go down any single line, if you want to look at the uses, there's lines of bees. So you can take a common. Let's take a look at the uses. The common then can make it cultivated. The cultivated can then make noble, majestic, diligent. An unweary can make an industrious, a farmly. So you can see it, every single one can go down a different line of bee. And that's how it really starts to branch. And there's a bunch of different branches, which we'll talk about as well. I hope this kind of helps clarify some of the beginning things of bees. So get yourself a whole bunch of apiaries, get yourself a whole bunch of bees, and start breeding them up. Let me know what you guys find. What are the most interesting bees you guys have come across yet? So that's really kind of cool to see. The most interesting ones that I have come across right so far, I think, are these ancients are kind of cool. I think I've got a few metal bees. So I've got Ferris, a cuprum, and a stannum. So we'll talk more about those different bees too. But let me know what you guys have made up. I'd be interested to know. And it's super dark and gloomy, and I'm loving it. All right, friends. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please stomp the like button. We'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Take care.